Hey guys, just doing a quick live reaction to this Arsenal versus West Ham game. Wow, what a game! And I think a lot of us were hopeful, but then when that lineup came out looking as strong as it did for West Ham, I must say it kind of dented my hopes a little bit because yeah, I thought West Ham were going to do what Leicester did and rest some players, and they did not rest too many players. They rested Suchek, and they started very strong, and they rested Mikel Antonio up front, and then basically center backs. They could not have done anything with their center back situation because they've had injuries there, and then they had Dawson sent off last week, so he's suspended. So basically, seeing that lineup was one of those things where I was like, "Whoa, this is much more of a difficult game than I think it will be," and it turned out to be that way, but not for the reasons I thought. I thought West Ham picked a lineup that was strong, but they did look lethargic and there for the taking. But teams that play that way, the way West Ham played that first half, are the last two to three teams Arsenal have lost games to. You know, Southampton, Brighton, and I remember um, writing comments on my Twitter page saying, "Yep, it looks like Arsenal are going to get Brighton and Southampton in this game." And this was around like midway into the second half when we were not laying a glove on them and they were not doing anything to hurt us either, but it was starting to loosen up a little bit. And that's what happened in the Brighton game. If you remember, we were in that game going into like 25 minutes or so, roughly thereabouts, and then boom, out of nowhere, they get a goal. um, and it looked like this one was going to turn out to be one of those too. And then it started to get a little loose. And this is what happens when you have players like Nuno Tavares, Gabriel Martinelli, and I'm going to add Edin Ketia as well in this trio of players who they're very high impact players. And I think the first half, more than the second half, showed us what I'm about to talk about. I think Eddie, Nuno, and Gabriel Martinelli, they're high impact. They're players who affect games. They'll get goals or they'll do things that lead to goals, but they're not very good when it comes to ball retention. So they lose the ball quite frequently and leads to then the opposition gaining momentum because you can't sustain pressure on them because you keep giving them the ball too many times. And to have three of them on one side and kind of like close to together, like so Gabi, Martinelli, and Nuno were playing left back and left wing, and then Eddie was a center forward, kind of like looking to come in and do some link up play, and they all did well. I'm not saying over the 90 minutes they were bad, but I think some of what we saw in that 45 minutes especially was Arsenal were very loose with the ball throughout the game, and I think a lot of the time was because we had these players who give us a punch going forward, and they've definitely threatened West Ham and scared West Ham quite regularly throughout the 90 minutes. But you lose something else though with them. That's why I think probably with Nuno, it's better to have Emil Smith Rowe on the left wing because he is more tactically secure and keeps the ball a little bit. He makes a little bit more less risky passes, with 1-2s. And then Eddie and Martinelli, they're shot monsters. They shoot the ball, and which is a good thing because we were all complaining when Lacazette was playing and not shooting. Eddie took several shots today, and the first one that I remember of note was the one he took one earlier that was not very threatening, but the one that led to the corner, which we scored our first goal from, that was a good shot. And then he took another one later on in the second half too. Um, and then there was one that went just marginally wide of the post, and then he forced Fabianski to make another save. So Eddie was threatening, and he had a good game overall. Um, I hope I'm not sounding too critical on these three boys because I'm very proud of the way they are developing and growing and helping in this run in. But they were for me the players who I think needed to grow into the game a little bit more to calm their nerves and not feel like they needed to do something spectacular every time they touch the ball. Holding, he's a reliable squad player. El Neni was good again. Xhaka was a little loose with the ball. I think, after winning the Player of the Month for April, I guess, it was somebody else's turn to carry us. And I think El Neni gives you like the steadiness in midfield, and the reliability that, that he brings into our midfield. It gives you a 6 to 8 out of 10, nothing too low, nothing too high. And he was good today, really, really good today. Tomiyasu, happy to see him back. Happy to see him back, but he definitely did look at times like he wasn't up to speed. And it's fair because, I mean, the guy was probably starting his second, if not the third game in all of 2022 in the Premier League, if you don't count that start that he rushed back for in the Cullen Cup against Liverpool, or Carabao Cup these days. Um, I think Tommy was reliable defensively, but it did enough to keep Nuno relevant on the other side and keep us protected. And then the one thing that I did notice though is that, like, Odegaard didn't have his best game. He wasn't bad, but he was just kept quiet. Watching on TV, it was hard to see if it was West Ham doing something on him to keep the balls going to him. Um, to block the lines from Arsenal passing the balls to Odegaard. I don't know if that was the case, but like he didn't look like his normal influential self in the game. Saka looked threatening when we found him, but we didn't find him enough times. And on these two players, I think, players like them two and then Granit Xhaka were big, big, big in the last two wins before this one. And so it's okay sometimes to have other people step up. Like today, it was two center backs stepping up, and Gabriel, who was struggling in those three losses. A lot of us questioning, if is his the birth of his kid affecting him and his ability to perform, and today came up big. Rob Holding came up big with a goal. So Arsenal looked really good today in terms of like their togetherness and their willingness to find another way. It didn't look pretty. It was not a pretty win, but I don't think you go through 38 games in the Premier League season or any league season playing beautiful football. So um, I think we'll take them however they come at this point. Like next week is going to be another big one against Leeds. Um, and I hope that Arsenal can find another way to win next week. Because if they do, and Spurs don't win against Liverpool, which is very likely, then at least going into the North London derby, Arsenal will not be needing to do too much. Um, they have a 2 point lead now on top four, and all they need to do is basically win next week and not lose at Tottenham, and then it would be 2 games to play with. I would say if they win next week and Spurs, let's say, draw, and Arsenal will have 4 point lead um, going into the North London derby, and if they win next week and Spurs, this is dangerous, right? I know you can't really count, but I'm saying if, right? If they win and Tottenham lose against Liverpool, then it's a 5 point gap going into the North London derby. Then you're playing with house money by that point because Arsenal have already qualified for the Europa League after today's win, and you're going into the final 2 games with a 5 point advantage, and I mean that would be ideal, right? Like as long as you don't lose at Spurs, just don't lose at Spurs, and you go into you don't give them control by doing that. Um, So yeah, let's hope Liverpool does us a favor and takes care of them, unlike Manchester City, because that's the thing with Tottenham. Like they go into these games and they find a way with those two guys up front, Kane and Son. Like I'm not counting on other teams doing Arsenal favors. We need to win our games, and if we do that, we're going to be fine. Come on, you Arsenal, up the Gunners. Let's do this. Have a good weekend, fellow fans, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.